Reddit, what's your best sucks to be right moment? Mum got pregnant and told me at about the 5-6 weeks stage. The first thing I did was rain on her parade and warned her not to tell everybody until it's past the safe stage. She told freaking everybody. People even threw parties for her. 2 weeks later, she lost it. Gaia, a relative who is at this stage, just notified the whole family, and all I could think was too early to spread the news. I wish more people knew to wait till second trimester. My ex-wife defended a guy that was remodeling her mom's house. After I said that I thought he smelled like horse crap. I saw the way she looked at him and called her out on it, asking if there was anything I needed to worry about. That Friday we got into some balls argument, and guess where she went? She spent the weekend with him. Marriage over. Frick her, man. That my mother wasn't coming back later ever to pick up my siblings. My mother wasn't the best one on the planet. She gave me up to my grandparents when I was young, and later, after I turned 18 years old, she left them at my doorstep with no warning or explanation. It wasn't the first time they'd been left at my place with no warning, but somehow I knew that in this case, she wouldn't be back in a week after whatever drug binge she indulged in. I just knew this time she wouldn't come back. I ended up spending 3 years working up to 2 different jobs at a time instead of going to college in order to take care of them. I didn't see her again for 10 years after she initially left them at my place. To be honest, I could have done without seeing her for another 10 years. I'm sorry. I told my mom that she would die before the year ended if she didn't listen to doctor's advice about her medical problems. She died on the 8th of December. Recently, and I never found the article in question. A friend was browsing on his phone and said, looks like we just signed a law that makes it legal to pay offshore workers 15% less than local workers. To which I replied, well, guess that means I just lost my job. Walked in Monday, bam, we're all getting laid off. One day, after talking to my friend on the phone, I got this niggling feeling that something wasn't right. She'd been depressed lately, but suddenly she was cheerful and happy. I ended up worrying she'd hurt herself. She slit her wrists in her bathtub that same night. I'm really sorry to hear that. I've heard before that if a suicidal person is suddenly in a positive, outgoing mood, it can be attributed to the fact that they are happy to know their time will soon be up. Simply devastating to think about. Hung out with a former co-worker I hadn't seen in a while. He told me he liked to stand on the train tracks until he saw a train coming, and that he'd been waiting longer and longer to move. Told him it was a bad idea but didn't make a big deal about it. A few months later he waited too long. I told my mom I was afraid of what might happen if and or when her relationship did not work out. The relationship ended 3 months later, and my mom died 2 months after that. Freaking alcohol. Coming up on a year since my best friend's suicide. I knew she knew where her dad's shotgun was because she told me. Several months past we would talk every day on the phone, and she would singing to my son. One night she calls me and I answer the phone. We talked about boys and the usual stuff. After I asked if she wanted to talk to my son, she said yes, and I handed him the phone. He was 6 months old. She sang to him one last time. We said our goodbyes and I love yous. The next morning I was calling her to talk about something but couldn't reach her. I called a couple times throughout the day, but this is normal for her, she wouldn't talk on the phone. A couple days pass and she's not answering her phone. I didn't really think much of it because it was usual. Her boyfriend wrote me on Facebook to call him and I already knew. I knew that I lost my best friend. I knew that she was gone. Right after she got off the phone with me she had shot herself. She was bipolar but everything seemed to be working lately. I hate to say it but I knew she was going to commit suicide. But not when she was going to do it. My son still listens to her sing to him because of a video of herself singing left up on YouTube. I still get to see her smiling face and hear her beautiful voice. Sorry for any grammar, punctuation, and any other mistakes. Using speech to text on phone. When I stated that one chief on my submarine was not fit to stand chief of the watch, 1 month later flooding caused by said chief. Story. My wife's family has this ongoing drama with the oldest sibling, her sister, who is 32 this year. The sister, we'll call her Sarah, decided to marry a 20-year-old sea kid, literally, 2 years ago. For some reason, She thought that marrying him would change him. Big surprise, it didn't. Myself, along with every other member of her family, tried to tell her that just because she married him didn't mean that he would stop cheating on her, abusing her, emptying their bank account, stealing her crap and disappearing for an entire week at a time. She didn't really listen. So what did she decide to do? She decided to get pregnant. Yeah, he got clean for a bit. A whole 6 months. I even started to think I might have been wrong about him. Nope. 6 months after his son was born, Sarah calls my wife up, sobbing that he'd been gone for days and she didn't have any money in her checking account. Don't get me wrong. I care about Sarah. I love her as if she were my sister by blood, but I do think she's the dumbest person on the planet. So what did she decide to do? Get pregnant again. Oh yeah, this time, this baby will really force him to change his ways. Freaking genius. Now before anyone says we should have done more to help her, you don't know the whole story. It's literally worse than the worst Lifetime Channel battered woman's movie. Let's just say, I'm not the only member of the family to fly cross country. We live in the Pacific Northwest. They live on the East Coast. Pack her crap up and drive her dumb butt back to this side of the continent only to watch her drive her dumb butt back in a few months. Yes, this has happened more than once. We've pretty much, as a family, told her to not call us the next time he cheats on her, leaves her and the kids for days, empties their bank account. My brother bragged to me that he was making a lot of money for himself selling drugs. I told him to stop. He'd get arrested and would get kicked out of his college. He didn't stop. My best friend was looking very sickly after his cancer diagnosis. I tried to be optimistic when they were talking about treatment options, but my gut was telling me he wouldn't make it. It was right. Same thing happened with my grandma. They were optimistic after surgery, but I wasn't. I was right. I still feel like a dong for it, even though I don't believe that my optimism would have made a difference. When Princess Di died, my mother said, you know, if Mother Teresa were to die tomorrow, no one would notice because of this insane media frenzy. A week later Mother Teresa died. Hardly anyone noticed. The media was deluged with pictures of Princess Di's funeral. Read The Missionary Position by Christopher Hitchens. It's a good thing nobody cared. My roommates and I need to pay our rent with one check. Since one of my roommates usually can't come up with the money until the last minute, we don't have time to write each other checks and wait for them to clear. That means we usually give each other roughly $600 in cash. Last month I offered to meet my roommate at his bank with the cash, which I normally don't offer to do. He said no and that he would just deposit it on his way to work the next day. Well, 3 days later I get a frantic phone call from him saying that his man purse was stolen, and he had never deposited the cash, which included mine, my other roommates, and his own money. A total of $1,700 gone. That doesn't include his previous 2 paychecks which he never deposited. Funny thing, the week prior to this he was boasting about having a few grand in the bank, which is why he waited so long to deposit the cash his paychecks. Not anymore. My friend was drunk and got in a fight with her boyfriend at her birthday party. I told her she was too drunk to drive and we argued about it for a while, but she had gotten a brand new BMW 6 Series for her birthday and wasn't going to leave it parked there or let someone else drive it. Shortly after that argument, nobody could find her and everyone was leaving the party. It took me forever to get home, because half a mile away, the road was blocked due to an upside down BMW 6 Series in the middle of the road. She was fine. Seeing as she was fine, I say she completely got what she deserved. I was dating a girl for a few months. Everything was going good, to my knowledge. Then one day she simply stopped talking to me. Last conversation consisted of, her, I am going to the movies with some friends tonight. Me, alright, well let's do something this weekend. Her, okay, love you. That was the last time I talked to her in over 9 months. She never answered a phone call, text message, or anything and completely deleted me out of her life. There was no real breakup. 9 months later I started thinking, oh crap, what if I got her pregnant and she bailed on me? So I got on FB to try to find her to see if there were preggo pictures or baby pictures. Nothing. Completely private profile. I friend request her. She actually accepts. I browse through the pics and see nothing. She messages me, asks if we can get together. We meet up. I ask her what the heck happened. She said that she got pregnant, freaked out, and bailed on me. She got an abortion. I don't talk to her to this day. There is a special place in heck for people who break up with someone by deleting them from their life without explanation. I wouldn't wish that misery on my worst enemy. Thought my ex was cheating on me. Couple days later I find out that she slept with 5 different guys in one night and had been sleeping with other guys consistently. I have a 23-year-old acquaintance who hangs out with teenagers aged 16-19 most of the time. It's weird. Twice before he's asked out girls shortly after their 18th birthdays. I came up with a theory that he becomes close friends with them when they're 16-17, hangs out with them a lot, gets to know them, then they'll already be good friends by the time they're 18 and they'll want to go out with him. He just asked out a friend of mine the day she turned 18. She said no. I'm proud of her. He gets older. They stay the same age. Yes, they do. Told my brother his girlfriend was gonna hurt him if he stayed with her. 3 months later he comes home from 8 to find her sucking some dong in his car outside their shared apartment. The dong belonged to her stepbrother. Oh man. Right before my friend left for deployment I told him, don't get shot, you'll probably die. 9 months later he was killed by being shot while in Afghanistan. I still miss him. I met up with some friends to go to a concert, and my best bud wasn't there yet. He wouldn't answer his phone at all and I was getting really pissed off, and I ended up having to give his ticket away. Throughout the night a couple times I was jokingly saying he's either dead or in jail. He got into a bad accident on the way back from work and died that afternoon. Sorry to hear that. My mom called me while I was in class and left a voicemail on my cell phone. She'd called from her cell, and I knew, as soon as I saw her name pop up, that something awful had happened because she hated that phone and never used it if she could avoid it. The message was that my dad had just died from a heart attack. Started dating a guy that I met through a mutual friend named Sandy that seemed to be my final match made in heaven. After about 3 weeks of pure bliss, we find out he got his ex right before me pregnant. We stopped talking. I thought, at the time, it was the best thing to do. Fast forward to 6 months later, this B goes and gets an abortion literally days after he posts how excited he is to finally be a father now that he feels the baby moving. I send him an email when I find out, in attempt to console him, and letting him know that I was still there and always would be there for him. The very next day I hear from other friends that Sandy was distraught because a good friend of hers killed himself. I knew instantaneously it was him. I prayed and panicked and hoped it wasn't him, but it turned out I was right. Sometimes, the what ifs still kill me. When I was 18 my father was showing all of the symptoms of someone with untreated diabetes: tingling feet, lack of energy, constantly thirsty and several trips to the bathroom a day. He went to his doctor and his doctor said he was perfectly fine even though I pointed out to the doctor all of these obvious signs. I had an argument with the doctor and he sent us home. A week later my father went into diabetic shock and nearly died. The worst part was that when the doctor came to the ER to speak to the ICU attending he told him that there were no previous signs of diabetes, at which point we got into a huge argument. I hope you have a new doctor now. This will get buried but I'll share anyway. I was out at the mall with a good friend of mine when we were 15. We were having a pretty deep conversation over lunch and we started talking about the age of our parents. My parents were pretty old at the time compared to his. I then said my parents will probably die when I'm still pretty young. My mom died of a ruptured brain aneurysm the very next day. I upvoted you because you figured it would get buried and wanted you to know someone read your comment. Then I actually read it. I am so sorry for your loss. My parents explained that they were going to use morphine to help my grandfather. I realized as we all stood sobbing around his bed that what it really was that he was so sick we were letting him pass the easiest way. The morphine slowed down his breathing and heart rate until he died. Is it still murder if he was dying anyways? As a child, I was standing next to the neighbor's trampoline, examining the springs, tugging on one. I said this one's loose. I distinctly remember that my hand was back at my side when it popped loose, ricocheted off my face, and flew over the neighbor's one-story home. I had a feeling my friend was abusing drugs. Last night I had to get into his safe and I ended up finding tons of pills, painkillers and Adderall, and a crack pipe. I don't know how to freaking approach him about this, but it's tearing me apart. I outed my dad at Thanksgiving several years ago. He denied it, but a few years later, after spending too much time with one of his friends, my mom kicked him out of the house. They divorced shortly thereafter. My mom died 3 years ago, after 25 years of alcohol abuse, smoking 3 packs a day, having had throat cancer and recovering from it. Doc says it's not from the cigarettes. One day she was walking from the toilet to the living room, collapsed. My father tried to resuscitate, but to no success. Her heart just quit. For years we were telling her, stop drinking and smoking. She never did. Hid booze in shampoo bottles. Lit her cigarette with the previous one. Barely could speak coherently, and we were afraid to let her carry our newborn daughter. This will kill you. Stop. For the sake of your grandchildren. Alas, it didn't work. She died, aged 63. Hate to say, I told her so. Bad part, it started when I was old enough to know what was happening. She made me go to the liquor store and get her booze when I was 12. Found her, seeing pink elephants with wings. Coming home from school when I was 14. Absent when I graduated. Drunk when I married. Drunk with her first grandchild. Drunk at all other important occasions. Scarred me and my brother and sister. Bad part, I'm 40 and inherited her genes and have to be careful around booze. Best part, I'm aware of that. More best part, loving wife and 2 great kids. Great career, good life. Reason enough not to follow in her footsteps, but still, told her so. When my girlfriend told me she was pregnant for the first time, I told her we had to wait to tell her parents because we needed to get a lot more support from various other people before telling them. I knew her mother's reaction would be bad. She told her mother over the phone the next day, just as I had predicted. Her mother reacted very, very badly and proceeded to ruin the next 3 years of my GF's life. Internet-based company. The internet went down for 30 minutes. Everyone was getting ready to go. I was just about to shut down my machine when the net came back online. I decided to announce said fact. You sound like an butthole. I was doing dishes one night when my sister came home. She said, guess who died today? I randomly said, Michael Jackson. Let it be known that I never saw or heard the news that day. Another one. My friend was posting sad things on the internet. My other friend and I weren't sure why, and I took a guess maybe his guinea pig died. Sure enough, it was announced the next day. 35-year-old here, so I have more a long-term strategy, but every day, I see people, friends and family, struggle with stupid crap that I've tried to let them know about, as friendly as possible. For years, I've known probably 100 people throughout my adult life, and about 20 are kind of freak-ups. I won't go into all, but one of my friends has an ego and thinks he is always right. He interrupts everyone with really argumentative statements to prove his intellectual superiority. Picture a person whose life really reflects a Redditor. Instead of comments being posted anonymously, he says it right to their face. I knew this guy, who is dang smart, 99 percentiles in every test, yada, yada, would suffer from unemployment and relationship issues. He's been like this since he was 19. He's 36 now, and just struggles with life. He's unemployed because every boss hated him. He goes out with girls on one date, and then gets incredulous that they aren't into him. He goes on a date with a nice girl, but since she's not a knockout, he dismisses her. I saw this in his early 20s. I knew he would suck when life got serious, and it did. And what really sucks is that he's a really nice guy who means well. I try to help him out, steer him to humility, openness, and pleasant conversations, but to no avail. Despite what I've said, he is a good friend who really deserves better. And yes, it freaking sucks that I'm right. This is one few times I wanted to be wrong in terms of reading a person. I have, to this day, been 100% accurate on how terrible guys that my lady friends, ones I'm not interested in, get with and to avoid them. One of them got syphilis from the one guy because he was freaking around with 3 other girls at the time. Another entered into a very abusive relationship with another scumbag. There are others, but they just never seem to believe me when I can pinpoint scumbags. I was first suicidally depressed at the age of 13. My wonderful mom was trying everything to help me out, and one of the things I'd wanted was a cat. Shockingly from a redditor, I wasn't the best socially adapted, so we went to the shelter. Now, all of them were cats, except this one that was just a furry purring bundle of love. At first I thought she was trying to crawl out of my arms, but it turned out she liked putting her paws on either side of your neck and going in for a hug. So she gets her examination. They say she has kitty kennel cough that should clear up, but it's all good. She comes home with me. Something about her torso feels a little lumpy, so I joke about it and call her Cancer Kitty. I mean, she had a name, but she is basically my favorite thing on the planet for 2 years. The lumps turn out to be huge internal tumors that I guess somehow the vet had missed. She is love and warmth and niceness to the last moments of her life. We wouldn't have had money for surgery even if I'd known sooner, but it was still pretty awful. Set my very best friend up with a guy I knew. They hit it off, got married, had a baby and celebrated their 3rd anniversary this summer. A year after the baby was born, they cut me out of their lives. I am not 100% sure why. Haven't talked to them in over 2 years. I was right, though. They were great for each other. She'd been my best friend since we were toddlers. A year after the baby was born, they cut me out of their lives. I am not 100% sure why. You could try asking them. My best friend from high school, 30 now, so 17 odd years, has been battling a pretty aggressive cancer for the past 12 months. We kept in touch via phone and Facebook, but kept postponing catching up due to life getting in the way. Just before Christmas, we finally made plans to catch up tonight. I offered to make it sooner. She said lighten up. It's not like you'll die in the next 2 weeks. She passed away on Christmas Day. I have one from when I was in secondary school. I was late for morning registration. Walked into the class about 5 or 10 minutes late. Everyone, students and teacher, were silent. As I walked in through the door at the front of the class, I was a little shocked by the silence, and before I even apologized for being late, I was stood at the front of the class and said, "Why so quiet? Someone die or something?" Real knife through the air moment. A kid in the front row simply said yeah. Oh, as I walked to my seat. Not good. Dated a girl in college for a few months. It was particularly strange because I felt like we had an inexplicable insight toward one another even though we just weren't really into each other. We made dinner plans and after a seemingly normal car ride there, I parked the car, looked over at her, and said, "You don't really like me, do you?" Her answer was, "Of course, no." I asked her how long she was going to let this go on and she said not much longer. I told her I wasn't hungry anymore and drove her home. After she got out of the car she gave me the "hope we can still be friends" talk. Did my "I told you so" dance that night with a pint of ice cream. For science. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.